I'm Coral Williams, and I'm the program coordinator for the Travel Foundation based in Jamaica. And I'm happy to tell you that the Travel Foundation is very pleased to be partnering with the Tourism Product Development Company Limited, TPDCO, to bring you this webinar series, which begins today and continues every Thursday until the 9th of December. The Big Up Small Business Project, which has made this webinar series possible, is being implemented in Jamaica by the Travel Foundation, which is a non-profit organization based in the United Kingdom. And the Travel Foundation's main focus is to work in partnership with tourism organizations to improve the impacts of tourism in destinations. The Big Up Small Business Project itself, which we are implementing in Jamaica, is being funded by the TUI Care Foundation. Next slide. Now, these webinars are part of our capacity building support through the Big Up Small Business Project. And the topics that we have selected today are designed, well, throughout the webinar series, are designed to support you to develop the knowledge and the skills to understand evolving market needs, industry protocols, and how to adapt your products accordingly and to prepare to recover with confidence from the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly now that travel is slowly returning. So each of the 4 webinars will focus on a different module. And today we'll be presenting on markets and products. Next week, Thursday, the 25th of November, we'll be presenting on health, safety, and security. And on Thursday, 2nd December, you'll hear all about how to price your product. And our final webinar will take place on Thursday, 9th December, and that module will help you to understand how to get ready for business. You're welcome to attend all of them, so please make sure you register. Next slide. So today, before we begin, I want to introduce you to some special people from our partner organizations who will be bringing greetings. We're joined by Marlene Stevens-Dali. She's Corporate Communications and Community Awareness Coordinator at TPDCO. And Marlene will bring greetings on behalf of TPDCO's Executive Director. We'll also be joined later by Jeremy Sampson, who is Chief Executive Officer of the Travel Foundation. And Jeremy will be bringing greetings from the Travel Foundation. So I'm now going to invite Marlene to say welcome on behalf of TPDCO.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Coral. I am happy to be here. This morning, apologies on behalf of our newly minted Executive Director, Mr. Wade Mars. He had a prior engagement and really regrets not being able to join us, but I'm filling in for him this morning, and it's my pleasure. So let me greet Mr. Jeremy Sampson in absentia, Chief Executive Officer of the Travel Foundation, and the other officers that are online are members of the team from TPDCO, our guest presenters or participants, very importantly, in the Big Up Small Business Program, members of the media that may be on as well, ladies and gentlemen. And let me just say a very, very good morning to you. Welcome everyone to this first day of this free webinar, which has been graciously provided by the Travel Foundation in collaboration with the TUI Care Foundation and the TPDCO. I'm ecstatic that our small businesses will be benefiting from useful and wide-ranging information in a forum such as this. In these times, we cannot afford to allow opportunities to pass us by, because rarely are they offered without an exorbitant price tag, and many times they don't come back. We're also very aware of the pandemic, which is approaching its 2nd year, and its significant impact on the tourism sector. And as contributors to this sector, unfortunately, many of your businesses are still experiencing losses. Some have even collapsed. This is truly heartbreaking. And as we work together to get some semblance of normalcy or normality back, this is one such way that we can prepare for the growth that is projected as the country opens up further. I would therefore like to encourage you to absorb the information that will be shared and to make the very best use of it as you prepare for a bigger and even better comeback. For those who are going steady, the webinar is important to keep you abreast of changes and trends and other information that I'm sure will be useful for some time to come. The entire sector celebrates when organizations like the Travel Foundation and the TUI Care Foundation have a vested interest in the betterment of our service providers and their needs. TPDCO is therefore happy to collaborate with them to make a difference in the lives of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to applaud you for taking the step to improve your personal and professional skills, as knowledge is indeed power. TPDCO's partnership with the Traveler Foundation and the TUI Care Foundation has really been a blessing, as we share the same sentiments in propelling tourism businesses, which we'll know will be aided by these 4 modules outlined earlier on by Mrs. Williams. Now, small businesses have been contributing to the success of the tourism sector for some time now, and have been known to respond to the needs of guests in unique and unforgettable ways. The personable service and the goods you provide help to tell the story of our island and our exceptional offerings. Your businesses have also helped to improve many of our communities and have acted as a vehicle of growth and development, which will leave a legacy for your children. I therefore urge you to continue the path of growth by planting the seeds of knowledge and allowing them to bear fruit. It was the famous physicist Albert Einstein who reminded us that life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Once again, a hearty welcome to an opportunity to thrive, and I extend my gratitude to the Travel Foundation and the TUI Care Foundation for creating avenues to accommodate your learning and your success. Do enjoy the sessions and all the best in your endeavors. Thank you, Cora, and back to you.
I was saying thank you so much, Marlene, for that inspirational message. I'm going to now invite Jeremy to bring greetings on behalf of the Travel Foundation.
Anyway, thank you very much, Coral and Marlene, for the inspirational opening and greeting. It's hard for me to top those great introductions, but I'm really just here to provide greetings, to say welcome to everyone, to say hello and just welcome you on behalf of the Travel Foundation. We are delighted to be have been working very closely with the TUI Cares Foundation and partnering with TPDCO to develop not only this webinar, but within the broader context of the Big Up Small Business program. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to collaborate over the last several years. I'm also formally providing greetings on behalf of TUI Care Foundation, who was meant to have a representative here today, but due to personal circumstances is not able to attend, and asked us to please say hello on their behalf. So as a great partner of ours and been working together really closely in this project, I just wanted to pass on those greetings from TUI Care Foundation. We recognize that the last couple of years have obviously been a difficult time for tourism businesses, to say the least. The pandemic has provided all sorts of new wrinkles and new challenges. We've had the opportunity during the last year and a half, I think, to do quite a lot of reflection globally, locally, within the context of the project, but also more broadly as a sector, on how we take this moment and try to spin it into some opportunity, try to build in more resilience to our sector and sort of not, as the cliche goes, not pass up the opportunity to turn crisis into something positive. I hope that the webinars can be just a small aspect of this, providing practical support and tools to help position all of the attendees for not only for the impending recovery, but for longer term resilience as we go forward together. The goal really here is to equip participants with new knowledge, with new skills, and to capitalize on opportunities for businesses in the future, and to really have time together as a group to continue that reflection, to share ideas and to discuss in a collaborative sense how we can how we can move forward in a more resilient fashion. So it's been our pleasure to support the partners and the attendees to this workshop in that process. And I just want to thank you for taking the time really to be with us today and over the next several weeks. You know, it's a decision to make to be here and to participate and contribute to these opportunities. And I just want to say we're really grateful for the opportunity to be together and wish you the best in maximizing and leveraging this opportunity over the next several weeks. So thank you very much again for welcoming us as a partner and wishing you all the best for the next few sessions.
Great, thank you, Jeremy. And Marlene, those messages are inspirational, and we hopefully the participants will take heed, Jeremy, and will ensure that they benefit from these sessions that we're going to be delivering over the next few weeks. Next slide. Okay, so you've already met me. I just now want to introduce the persons who will be presenting today's webinar, today's session. So I'd like to introduce you now to Rebecca Armstrong, who is our Destinations Program Officer at the Travel Foundation, and Rebecca is based in the United Kingdom. Rebecca and I will be delivering today's presentation. Next slide. So today, we'll be looking at evolving market trends and how you can design and adapt your products to meet the demand. The agenda that we've put together includes a mix of presentations, some question and answer sessions, poll questions, and breakout room discussions. There will be 2 breakout room sessions, which will give you the opportunity to participate in group discussions around the topic that we're going to be presenting. Please don't worry though, the sessions are designed to be very informal, so you'll get to discuss what you've learned and how you're going to put that learning into practice. I also just want to take a few moments to make a few announcements before we begin the presentation. So for talk and video, you may notice that you're on mute and your video functionalities have been disabled on your meeting settings. This will remain so until it's time for the breakout room activities. So once you enter the breakout rooms, those functionalities will be enabled to allow you to participate in the group discussions. The chat function is only enabled to allow you to chat to the host. So you can use that for questions and feedback, and you can post your questions in chat and we'll answer them during the question and answer sessions when we get to that segment. And finally, if you've completed the survey that we sent you ahead of today's session, you will get an email that will allow you to download the toolkit, and also you'll be able to get a certificate of attendance for each of the webinars that you attend. If you haven't completed the survey though, don't worry too much. I'm going to post it in chat. It's not too late for you to do so. So you can do that at the end of the session or throughout if you have time. I post the link in chat so you can access it. All right, so having completed all of that, I think I'll now invite Rebecca to begin her presentation.
Thank you, Coral. So as Coral mentioned, this first module, we're looking at markets and products. And today's presentation really is in 2 parts, and they mirror the toolkit that we've prepared to go alongside these webinars, which has a lot more detail and tips. And as Coral mentioned, once you've attended each webinar and completed the survey that we sent out, you'll be sent a link for that toolkit, which has all the practical details to help you implement what we're going through today. So the first part of today's presentation is on evolving market trends. I'm just going to quickly go through this. A lot of this detail is in the handbook, as I say, but just looking at some details of where Jamaica's tourists come from. So obviously the figures that we have are before the pandemic, and things have changed in the last few years, but we're looking at general trends, and so hopefully these are trends that will continue after we're recovered more from the pandemic going forward. But this has been a growing market, so growth rate from the UK, for example, in the 4 years up to 2018 was an average rate of about 8% a year. Although the average length of stay for all tourists is 8 nights, from the UK it's normally longer, obviously, and from Europe generally, because it's a longer journey, so people invest a bit more and a bit more time, and so those tourists are likely to perhaps spread their stay over a few different destinations, perhaps go on more excursions, etc. And although in the short to medium term visitor numbers are down, there really is that sense of pent-up demand, so that as things recover, we would hope to see a fairly quick increase in tourist arrivals. And also, as this quote shows from the TUI Group, that the new trends are really just following up things that were already happening. They're accelerating trends that people were already seeing prior to COVID. So that appetite for adventure, for experiencing different cultures, different foods, all those things will, we hope, continue to grow. So I'm just going to go through really quickly some of the growing trends that we were seeing before the pandemic, and actually that we're seeing increase, some of which we've seen increase due to the pandemic itself. So an increased motivation to explore, definitely. Although a lot of tourists to Jamaica do stay in all-inclusive accommodation, most of those tourists do take at least one excursion, and often more than that. A lot of the tour operators that we spoke to prepare this toolkit and the webinar reported that the number of excursions are going up year on year, and there's now an average of 4 to 6 excursions for a 2-week stay. And then another trend, particularly I think that we're seeing in the wake of COVID-19, is this trend for private and small group tours. People are looking for something that's more tailored to what they want. It's a more bespoke experience. They don't want something that they feel that everybody else is doing, but they're looking for really that kind of insider's perspective on Jamaica. And so if you do offer tours and excursions, I think that's something that you can really capitalize on and look to emphasize in what you're offering. The next trend we're certainly seeing, I think, not just in Jamaica, but certainly in markets generally, is this increase in sustainable products and experiences. There's lots of surveys, booking.com is just one that we've quoted there, but lots of these surveys are pointing to just that increased interest in sustainability, in giving something back to the destination. And particularly this trend of giving back to local communities. People really want to see that the holidays that they go on are giving something back to the destinations that they're visiting. They want to support local businesses. They're particularly mindful of the impact that COVID-19 has had on destinations, and conscious perhaps that they want to support local businesses a bit more, that they want to invest in those local communities. So they're interested in hearing about what products and services they're buying that actually are contributing to the benefit of local community. Authentic and unique experiences, again, I think this is something that people have been interested in increasingly for a few years now, but really looking for something, perhaps a special experience, especially if they haven't been able to travel for a couple of years. They really want to make their next trip count, and so they want to experience something that's different, something that's certainly different from the home environment perhaps that they've been stuck in for the last couple of years. They really want to get out and experience different cultures, different ways of life, something that's really authentically Jamaican. And I think Jamaica certainly has so much to offer in that respect, so many experiences that you just wouldn't get anywhere else. And so really emphasizing in the products and services that you offer what's different, how can they experience local life, how can they not just be that kind of passive observer, but actually taking part. Also food tourism, so eating local food is a huge interest really across lots of different markets, looking for a taste of the country, literally. And so these are just some of the ideas of things that you might want to think about incorporating, whether it's a core part of your business or whether it's something that you could offer or perhaps partner with another local business to offer. So local food and drink, the story of local food, cultural experiences through food, cookery lessons, all those things that people want to experience and want to take part in as well, not just kind of necessarily just eat food and drink, but actually to take part in a cultural experience around it as well. And then a few more trends that we're really seeing. Culture and heritage, again, kind of cuts across a lot of these experiences. So food is obviously a big part of culture and heritage as well, but that sense of experiencing another way of life, the heritage, the history, really what makes the destination unique. Where's it come from? What's its history, but also what's its current culture as well. Getting into nature and adventure, I think we're certainly seeing both of these trends following COVID. People are keen to get out into nature, to experience the outdoors. It's also a way that they feel they can naturally socially distance from people. So those kind of tours are particularly popular. And adventure as well. I think people, again, having been cooped up at home and wanting to go on that special trip that they feel they can do something that they haven't been able to do, that sort of bucket list destination that they want to experience again. All these trends are going to be increasingly important, I think, as visitors come back. Online experiences, the research that we conducted for this handbook, many of the tour operators that we spoke to emphasised the growing interest and demand for online virtual experiences. That might be tours, cooking, craft lessons, etc. But it's also just digital content as well. So even a lot of the travel companies that you might work with are looking for that digital content so that people can not just experience things virtually, but only virtually, but they can also experience virtually what they might then be able to do in practice when they visit in person. And then another trend, obviously particularly relevant post-COVID, is health, safety and security. And this is something we'll be looking at in much more detail in the next webinar. And we'll look at the COVID protocols and the expectations of tour operators in terms of international health and safety standards as well. But that's obviously hugely important to tourists, particularly at the moment. And also a really important point is not to forget about the local market. So one of the few positive impacts of the pandemic has been that increase in people taking the time to discover what's on their doorstep. And we do expect to see domestic tourism continuing to be important. So, you know, you can think about what you might do to attract local people to visit your business, even in the times when international tourism isn't happening. So you might be able to offer special prices. You might think about how you could market, perhaps in the local press. You might want to consider special events or days specifically targeting domestic tourists. So I hope most of you received by email the case study, Sam's Mango Farm, that we're going to use during these webinars, really just to bring to life some of the examples we're talking about. We will be looking at this a little bit later on, so I'll just go through it quickly now before we move on. So the case study we've created is that Sam is a mango farmer. He's interested in diversifying his business outside of the mango season. So he's thinking about how he can continue farming. He's not going to give up farming, but he would like to obviously create some different ways of gaining income. He's created some accommodation, just some rustic cabins and some tree houses and a small tourist attraction. He's created a tour. He's got lots of interesting facts about mangoes and the farming, his family history. He's doing some guided walks in the woods around the farm. He's got some bikes for guests to ride. His wife is providing cooking lessons in an outdoor kitchen, and also his brother has a glass bottom boat on a beach nearby, and he's offered to go on excursions with guests. He's produced some leaflets and just a very basic web page. So that's kind of as far as Sam had got, and that was before the pandemic. Now that tourists are coming back to Jamaica, he needs to decide how he's going to adapt his products to ensure he gets some business. So the market trends, thinking about those market trends that might be important for Sam's business, they will be things like food tourism, obviously will be really important as a mango farmer, private and small group tours, offering sustainable products, supporting local businesses, so his brother with the boat, but perhaps others, something authentic and unique, responding to that trend of getting into nature, and thinking about the local market as well, what visitors could he attract locally. So we're now going to hear from a guest, Janet Crick. I'm really delighted to welcome Janet. She's the Tour and Creative Experience Director at Jamaica Culinary Tours. And Janet is a great example really of someone who's built a business around two of these trends, I would say in particular. I'm sure there's more, but certainly the trend for food tourism and culture and heritage are very much at the heart of what Janet's created in her business. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and welcome Janet. Hi, good to see you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Great to see you all too tonight. Thanks very much to the organizers for inviting me to participate in Big Up Small Business, and commendations to all of you for putting together what I think is going to be an excellent webinar series. And I hope I can contribute a little bit to your learning today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah, you can, good.
Good. Okay. So Rebecca has introduced me, Janet Crick from Jamaica Culinary Tours, A Taste of History. And this is a small family business, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a minute. But just to give you an overview of what I'm going to present today based on what the organizers have asked. And that's to tell you a little bit about the market trends that we looked at that led to the design of our products. We'll talk a little bit about the products, and then the pandemic and what we have done since the pandemic to try to pivot, and what we're looking at post-pandemic in terms of recovery and how we will, revamp or revise the product to meet the new trends and our new reality. So that's what I've been talking about. So I've been talking about We. So We, as I said, it's a family business. It's really run by my sister Anne and myself. And as you can tell there, we are huge foodies. We also like to travel quite a bit. And over the years, as we traveled, we started getting into culinary experiences because we're such big foodies. And of course, we found that we were not the only ones who were doing that. And we found an increasing desire from people all around the world to become involved in food-related experiences. So we do things like wine tours or food tours, cooking demos, hands-on cooking experiences, and so on. And as I said, we noticed there was a pickup in this. So when we ourselves started to look for a business opportunity, and we looked at our own skill set with experience in hospitality, tourism, management, intercultural and international relations. And then, of course, we both have not only a passion for food, but a significant passion for Jamaica and Jamaican culture and for promoting Jamaica. Logically, when we put all of those together into the melting pot, what we were looking at developing was a culinary tourism experience. Or product, I should say. But we had to be informed by the data. As you know, when you're going into business, it's not enough to just have a brilliant idea. You need to go and look closely at the data. So that's what we did. And I should put this in a context in terms of dates. We were looking to put together our business in 2012. So the data I'm sharing with you now dates back to 2012 and before. So what we found was that today's tourist was becoming much more savvy. The world was opening up in terms of travel, many more opportunities for travel. People were going further and wider, and they wanted to expand their experiences as they traveled, get more into the local culture while on holiday. And when you think about it too, even before we travel, the world has opened up in such a way that we're knowing about other cuisines and cultures, even from our own living room. You know, the food channels and all these travel channels, we're all getting so involved in other people's cuisines and so on. So that was a trend that we noticed. Then we looked at how much people normally spent when they travel. So up to 1/3 of their total spend when they were on vacation would be on food. And then that translated into about 70 billion in the US in the year 2000 that people were spending on food and shopping. And 37% of travelers, the data told us, were willing to splurge on food and drink. And you notice I used the word splurge. That's what the studies showed. So in other words, people were not just grabbing a quick thing to sustain them as they move from place to place. They were actually interested in an experience with the food. So they were willing to spend a little bit more than they normally would when they were in these destinations. What we also found was that 16% of Americans, and Rebecca just shared the data, up to 66% of our tourists come from the United States. So 16% of those persons spend money on food and drink when they travel. And 27 million Americans in 2007 had made culinary activities a part of their travel. In other words, they had the culinary activity was a major factor in their decision to travel. And we talked a lot about the US as a main market, but popping over to the UK, you see there that food tourism spend is, at the time, was estimated to be worth nearly 8 billion each year. So you can imagine how much that would have grown to now. And I just put this little quote here to show you, this is based on research that the province of Nova Scotia in Canada did. And it talks about travel now being not just about where you go, it's about what you did while you were there, how you felt, the people that you met, and the memories you took home. And it ends by saying a product is what you buy, an experience is what you remember. So when we put together that whole package of what you see here on the screen, as well as the data, we knew that what we wanted to create was an experience or a product that could offer a combination of food, culture, terroir. And when I talk about terroir, I'm speaking about terroir is the idea that food and wine have very specific qualities that are influenced by the place of origin, the environment, the geography, and the soil, so on. So we could think about jerk as one food in our terroir. We wanted to create a product that would be enjoyable, because we saw from the data that people wanted to have fun, but they also wanted to be engaged. And we also saw from the data they needed to have memorable encounters and experiences. They wanted experiences that would be immersive and experiential. And a key factor in all the data we looked at was authenticity. So what would distinguish between just roaming around any random town or knowing, I think Rebecca alluded to earlier on, that you were in Jamaica specifically. So we came up with a product, culinary tourism product, food tours, the Falmouth food tour initially, which was a walking tour of the historic town of Falmouth over 2.5 hours, 5 tastings. And then a couple of years later, the Nyamangawe tour, combo walking and bus tour, starting in Falmouth, going all the way up to Ocho Rios, coming back down to Falmouth, 5.5 hours, 5 tastings. And I'm just going to go through and show you some pictures. I'm not going to speak to each of them, but as you look at them, what's going to jump out at you is some of the words that I used earlier on. Memorable experiences, interacting with the local culture, engaging, experiential, immersive, and of course, the biggie, authenticity. So I'm sure you're seeing that in some of the images that I'm showing you. So what was the reaction to our product? Well, I'm pleased to say it checked all of the boxes. Right from the get-go, we had 5-star reviews and we copped awards both nationally and internationally for authenticity. Again, when you look at the screen, you will see some of the feedback that we got. These are quotations from our reviews. I won't read all of them, but certain words will jump out at you. Experiencing the real Jamaica, excitement, experiencing a wonderful culture, the people, the history, got a taste of Jamaica. So we felt pretty good that what we set out to create is what we actually did create, and people responded very positively to that. But of course, we all know March 2020, all of that came to a halt. I did say we were in Falmouth, which is primarily a cruise ship based town. So most 97% of our guests came from the cruise ships. So even after Jamaica reopened its borders, we still didn't reopen because ships, as you know, are just now coming back into Jamaica just in the recent weeks, and for Falmouth, literally in the last week or so. So in the meantime, we didn't want to just sit idle and do nothing. So we thought about, okay, what can we do? What is the pivot? And in the first couple of months of the pandemic, we belonged to a group, an online Facebook group called Food Tours Operators. And we had belonged to the group pre-pandemic, but it really wasn't very active. Once the pandemic set in, you know, food tour operators around the world, we were all in the same position. What do we do? And so we started meeting regularly, like once a week, initially just to cry on one another's shoulders. And then as time went by, we started to share ideas about things that, you know, each of us were doing virtually to stay alive or to just remain engaged, relevant, stay in touch with our client base, etc. And out of that sharing of ideas, we here at Jamaica Culinary Tours came up with the idea of a virtual experience, reggae, rum, and dinner. And it's quite a simple concept. It's an online dinner party. So what happens is that our guests book an experience, and once they book the experience, we send them a menu, 3-course menu, and recipes for an authentic Jamaican dish, or authentic Jamaican meal, I should say. And then we send them tips and videos, how to prepare the meal and so on. And we meet online and at an agreed time. And it is pretty much the same thing that we try to create in our physical face-to-face tours. We're looking for an experience that would teach them about Jamaica, the cuisine, the culture, give them a feel and a taste of Jamaica, but would also be fun and engaging and dynamic. And of course, it's, you see there, it says reggae, rum, and dinner. So it's not just about the food, but we're infusing it with a bit of reggae and a bit of rum. So by the end of the evening, everybody is feeling nice and mellow, and they've heard the stories behind the food, etc. So it's just like a dinner party, really, except that we're not there in seeing each other face to face, and it allows the guests to experience Jamaica from the safety of their own home. Okay, so that's what we have been doing in the interim, and it's been going well. What's next? What do we do? Where do we go from here? Well, we're going to have to go back to the data again. And Rebecca has done a lot of my work for me, because she's talked about a lot of the data that's showing that coming out of the pandemic, well, as the world opens up a little bit more, people are wanting much more of what they were indicating that they wanted before. And I want to just point you to this study that I have here on my screen. It's from CompeteCaribbean.org, and they did a study just prior to the pandemic about diversifying Caribbean tourism experiences, and it's really very, very comprehensive. So we've looked at that among others, and so you can take a screenshot of this or just go to CompeteCaribbean.org and have a look at the study, because it really tells you who you should be targeting, what tourists are looking for in terms of preferences, how much they will spend, and so on. So that's a useful tool. And what that and other data showed us is that visitors to the Caribbean continue to have this growing interest in food and beverage activities, and they want to be involved in activities that lead them directly to the traditional local cuisine. It's also showing that they are looking for customized personal experiences which allow them to decide where they go, how much time they spend, and so on. And they're very importantly looking for experiences that bring some unique aspects and the value added. They want hands-on experiences. And of course, authenticity remains a big major ingredient for them. We also did our own internal survey at Jamaica Culinary Tours. We did this over the last few months, and what we found is that we did it among our client base, persons who had formerly done the tour, and also our travel agents. And what we found is that 75% of the survey target prefer to be given a list of culinary options that they can pick and choose from. They're comfortable with about a 1 to 2 day experience, and up to 85% of them opt for a mix between high-end and authentic street experience. So street experience is still a biggie. Authenticity is still a biggie. And there is leaning towards factory tours such as rum tours and farm to table. So where this is leading us, even though we haven't fully defined the product or fully developed it yet, but where it's leading us as we come out of the pandemic, hopefully, is a suite of offerings. So whereas before we had pre-packaged offerings with specific tours that go to specific destinations, we're going to be looking at giving our clientele more of an option to build their own itinerary. So we build it for them, and if they want to go off and do it on their own, that's fine, but the data shows that most of them actually want us to accompany them. So we build the itinerary based on their preferences, then we make the booking and we go along with them on the experiences. And oh, you're seeing storytelling there, just a little promo show off. During the pandemic, I wasn't sitting idle. I actually went and did a storytelling course. I'm now a certified storyteller. I was always telling stories, but now I'm bona fide, shall we say. And of course, the experiences will be focusing on food and beverage because that's our interest, but looking at food, culture, and history, community and food, wellness and food continues to be a biggie for persons. So that gives you a plethora of options to combine different things, coffee tours, chocolates and chocolate making, people interested in health, wellness, medicine, cooking demos, and so on. So as we come out of this, this is where our headspace is. This is what we'll be looking at promoting and building and sharing with our clients. And so I'll shut up now. Thank you so very much for listening, and I'm very open to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Janet. We can take, that was a very interesting and informative presentation. And in fact, you may as well have done our presentation for us because you've ticked off all the boxes and covered everything that we're pretty much talking about in terms of trends and what people need to be looking for in order to adapt their products. So that was excellent. As Janet says, she's sticking around for another 5 minutes or so to take questions. So if you have any questions, please post them now in chat and we'll just pose them to her so she can answer. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to post it in chat. Sounds like everything was well said and clear. So there are no questions for Janet. Oh yes, there's one here. Marlene is asking Janet, how difficult was it for you to pivot?
It was a little difficult because there was just so much uncertainty. And then, of course, pre-pandemic, we weren't really accustomed to doing things online. You didn't know how people would respond and all of that. But I have to say, I mentioned the Food Tours Operators Group, which is what helped us to come up with the idea. And they were really very supportive. So that kind of helped to boost our confidence. And we did a few pilots with just friends and so on. And people really warmed to the idea. They really liked the products. So it was difficult, but in business, there's nothing that's not difficult, especially when you're trying something new, you know. So you just kind of have to put yourself out there and do it, and then, you know, based on the feedback, you do tweaks as necessary, etc.
There's a few more here. One about whether Janet could share where we can find her business online. So perhaps you could mention that in a moment, Janet, as well. A question about how the food tours might change with COVID-19. How is that affected? How you might have to perhaps replan the tours or make tweaks to them? That would be really helpful, actually, because I'm sure a lot of businesses will be thinking that same question through for themselves. So how does COVID-19 affect the tours, or how will it affect it in the future?
Okay, thank you for those questions. So I can be found at JamaicaCulinaryTours.com. And that gives you the overview. That's our website where you can make bookings even for the virtual dinner, and gives you an overview of who we are and what we do. In terms of the question, how will we be adapting? Excellent question. Things really do have to change. When we were doing the tours in Falmouth face to face, depending on the season, when we got into the busy season, we used to take up to 12 persons per tour. Tried not to make it too much bigger than that. But in the busy season, sometimes we had to stretch to 14, 16 persons per tour. We're not really looking at that going forward until we're really way beyond this pandemic. And I don't think clients would want that either, because people kind of really want to stay in their bubble or not be in spaces that are too crowded. So we're probably looking at, as I said, more customized tours, in which case it might be Coral's family or Coral's bubble who is booking a tour, and so I'm only dealing with Coral's bubble for this particular tour. It's not Coral and Marlene and Sharika, etc. So, and of course, all the safety protocols have to be observed. So we tried, and that's why it's good if you're in a small group, you can distance. If you're in a bubble, then the bubble itself doesn't have to distance. But of course, mask wearing is a must, and you make sure that you tell your guests. In any case, in Jamaica, it is still mandatory that you wear a mask in public spaces. So we can't just enter a public space without a mask. Obviously, when you're eating, masks would have to be removed. So we would have to be looking at social distancing very carefully. So that all of that is going to dictate the venues that we select. So if it's a small, cramped venue, it probably would not be ideal. If we can have venues that are outdoors and where people can distance a little bit, that's going to be better. Shields for a tour guide, because we're speaking, so we can't necessarily use a mask. So wearing shields if necessary, and distancing, hand sanitizing, just all protocols observed. Where we're traveling by bus, bus drivers that are certified and have followed all the guidelines and protocols in terms of sanitizing of the vehicles, etc. So I hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you.
Great. I'm not seeing any other questions. Are you seeing any more?
There's just a couple more, just about how the business was able to pivot and manage in the face of the pandemic, with lockdowns, curfews, etc. And also just whether you have an idea of when you'll be able to start back the Falmouth food tour. And also just another congratulations to you on being proactive, using the research and sort of enacting on that.
Okay, the pivot was difficult because we're doing virtual, so lockdowns, etc. don't really affect us because we can do the virtual at any time. It's all online. But of course, the lockdowns have affected us in terms of trying to return to physical. As I mentioned, we haven't tried to return because primarily we were cruise ship based. So one of the things going forward is to kind of try to change that, not be so dependent on one segment of arrivals. So if we're not tied to the cruise ships, then curfews will affect us, yes. But also what affects us right now is that the guests are being asked to stay in a particular corridor. So that's also a reason why one of the reasons why we haven't rushed back out to market. When we get back, somebody asked about the Falmouth food tour. I don't think it will look the same way it did pre-pandemic, but Falmouth is very near and dear to our hearts. Falmouth, I never lose an opportunity to talk about it. That's 240 years of history sitting there. And we always love an opportunity to showcase Falmouth. So even if we don't just pick back up where we left off with the Falmouth food tour exactly as it is, we know that Falmouth is going to feature in our tours some way or the other.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you. There's just one more question I think we've got time for, slightly linked to that. Do you find your client base feeling as engaged on the virtual experience as they would during the physical tour? Or perhaps are there other ways that you engage them, because it's virtual?
Well, let me just say, rum makes everybody engaged. No, I mean, it's always going to be a little different, and we've all been feeling that, whether we're on a virtual experience or whether we're on Zoom. It's so much different if I were at a face-to-face meeting and I could meet Marlene and Rebecca at the coffee break station and we could have a good little chat offline, so to speak. So it's always a little different, but as Jamaicans, we are a hospitable people, so we know how to host you and we know how to make you feel good and how to bring you in to our world. So we do the best that we can with it. And the point is that if people book the tour, it means they already have an interest. Yeah. So it's not like you're trying to force them to be engaged, to have fun. They've gone out of their way to book it. In some cases, they may cook all the dishes. They may have cooked one or they may have cooked none, but they are certainly interested to be there. So you build on that interest, right? And you don't have a ship to run back to, and they don't have a hotel to run back to or another engagement to run to. So if they want to stay online and party and have fun and ask questions about the food, about the culture, or the history, it's really very free-flowing and very informal. So you just do the best you can in the virtual space, which is what I think we have all been doing for the past 20 months.
Yeah.
Great.
And sorry, just to add to that, what we like is that once you have introduced them to Jamaica and the culture virtually, then there's that much more of a draw for them to actually come here physically. Once we get past the pandemic or they are comfortable with traveling again and so on.
Yeah, it whets their appetite, literally.
Precise.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Janet. That was really excellent, and just bringing to life what we've talked about, really how to respond to those trends and adapting your product as well to respond to changes in the situation. That's been really brilliant to hear. So thank you. We're just going to have another short presentation before we hear from our next guest speaker. So I'm just going to share my screen again. We're just going to think briefly about the second part, really, of this webinar, which also reflects the second part of the toolkit that you'll receive after participating. So this is all about designing and adapting products then to meet demands, which we've just started to think about in the breakout sessions. So all tourism products, really, there is various essential elements to every product. So they should be, as well as being safe and enjoyable for customers, they need to be respectful to the environment and local communities. That should always be at the heart. But all these extra elements, so being fun, promoting learning, being interactive, memorable and unique, all those things are what makes the product special. And it's really important to design products that meet customers' needs, and shows really that you understand what they value. So how can you make sure that you do that with your products? So this is a checklist really of when you look through your what you're offering, just making sure that you're covering these things. So is it something unique and different? Does it have all those essential elements? And which ones particularly do you want to stand out? Do you want it to be interactive? Do you want it to be fun, etc.? Making sure that you're catering for different ages and needs, providing authentic experiences that create those special memories that people take home with them and talk about afterwards and perhaps recommend to their friends, making sure that it's got a positive impact on the environment and giving something back to local communities, making sure that you're able to accommodate different group sizes. Obviously, particularly with COVID, that's something really important to think about how you might tailor it to offer small group sessions, bespoke tours, and making sure you're communicating about how you're adhering to health and safety protocols, etc. So adding value to your product or experience, this is really about showing that you know what your customers value and just adding that extra touch. So it's finding ways of making what you offer really special, so that visitors want to buy it and also that they'll recommend it to others. So that might be really special customer service. It might be the depth of knowledge that you can show about the place you're taking them to or its people. It might be a way that you just make the experience more comfortable for your visitors. You offer extra convenient services, opportunities to contribute to local communities, all those special touches. And these are some examples over here just of the kind of reviews that might prompt. So in this one, the tour guide went above and beyond, or the extra special touches made this particular place more than just a guest house. It was a special place to stay, offering the best tour experience. So, and from the point of view of operators as well, that's really what they're looking for. So something that adds value to their clients, gets them immersed in the culture and nature of a destination. That's what the product director that we spoke to from Exodus Travel told us when we were researching the toolkit. As well as that, obviously, it's really important to get the basics right. So it's really important to be clear about what you're offering. So making sure that all the elements of the tour and experience are really well described, clearly described, so that people know whether it's going to be suitable for them. So is food and drink provided? Is it suitable for the kind of age of the guest? Is the terrain difficult, for example? If that's the case, then that needs to be clearly stated. The activities need to be clearly described, etc. Duration is really important to consider as well. So for example, if it's going to be part of a tour, you need to make sure that you're describing exactly how long it will take so that the operator knows that they can definitely fit it into the tour they're developing. If it's a longer period of time, then there needs to be obviously enough for the visitors to do and a variety of activities. Or you might want to think about working with other operators, other attractions to create a tour together. So you might combine different elements from your businesses to put together a tour. Obviously, at the moment, you really need to be clear about how you're complying with COVID health and safety protocols, and that's something we're looking at in more detail in the next webinar. And cancellation policies at the moment are particularly important to have that flexible cancellation policy that you can demonstrate to customers, that you can demonstrate to operators, that they know that you've got that flexibility if things change, particularly at the moment. And embedding sustainability, we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail, but consumers really want to know that companies care and that they're taking care of not just the environment, but local communities as well. So that's caring for the planet. For accommodation providers, that might look like looking at carefully at your energy use. What could you switch off? What steps could you take to stop energy being wasted? It might be about saving water. So that might be devices to make your business more water efficient, or just the way that you use water, being careful in how you use water in your operations. And waste, I think food waste in particular is something that actions can really make quite a difference to the amount of waste that's produced, particularly things like portion sizes and buffet service, that kind of thing. And then caring for the planet for excursion and activity providers. That might be having really strict environmental policies that you make sure that particularly the natural areas that you're visiting, that your visitors know what you're doing to protect them. Waste disposal again, and responsible planning. So in terms of the visitor numbers that are visiting perhaps particularly sensitive destinations, you make sure that those visitors are not overcrowding that particular destination, perhaps that you're not all arriving at the same time, that you work with other operators to know that particular locations are not going to be too busy all at one time. And then embedding sustainability in terms of caring for people, that has various aspects to it. That's about staff welfare and well-being. So how you're motivating your staff, making sure that their well-being is supported, because if they're happy and supported in their job, they're much more likely to provide really good customer service to guests. So you might want to think about ways that you could incentivize and reward your staff for their performance. Giving back to the local community, again, as we said, travellers are looking for travel experiences that give back to the community. So what ways could you do that? And communicating with customers, it's really important to tell customers and tour operators what you're doing to protect the environment and support local communities. There's lots more information about this in the toolkit. So this is just really a summary of what you can find in that toolkit, and there's lots of practical ideas in there of how you can show that your business is really caring about sustainability and embedding it into what you're doing. So next, I'm really delighted to welcome Marco Morandini from TUI Musement, who's come to share a presentation with us. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so that Marco can share his and take over. Thank you, Marco. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. I will try to share my screen. Give me a sec. Can you see?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. If you have any kind of question during my presentation, please stop me or write in the chat, and I will try to answer even in the latest part of the Q&A. I'm going to present myself, and then we are going through a very brief presentation on TUI Musement and what we are looking for. I'm Marco. I'm from Italy. And I work for TUI Musement as business development, basically. So what I do is trying to develop new kind of businesses for our company. I don't know how many of you knows who is TUI Musement. TUI Musement is one of the main company of TUI Group, so the wider group, the corporate TUI Group, and we are in charge of managing all the tour and activities businesses. So TUI Group is divided into 3 different pillars. We have our airline, we do have the hotels and cruise line, and then the last pillar is tour and activities. And tour and activities is a pretty new industry in the travel sector, and it's the youngest one and the less mature, I would say. But it's the one that has the highest acceleration and is growing faster than the other one in many kind of ways. It's growing a lot in terms of visitors that are taking tour and activities, or even in terms of booking online instead of booking in destination. I know that today the audience is ranging between tour operators to drivers to accommodation provider. So my presentation will be kind of a little bit specific and for tour activities, but anyhow, most of the trends that we are going to see today can be also applicable for example, for accommodation. So bear in mind that I'm taking mainly around tour and activities, but most of the data, the trends that you will see can be applicable also to tour and activities. So what are going to talk today? So first of all, trying to explain you the business model and how it works. TUI Musement can be useful to understand who we are. And it's pretty simple. We are an online travel agency. It means that we source tour and activities around the world. We have many different destinations ranging from sun and beach to cities destination. Jamaica is one of our destination where we are there with our resort, and we go there with our airline, and we also provide tour and activities to our guests. So Jamaica is one of our destination, and basically we source activities from what we call suppliers. So we have account managers around the world sourcing activity to suppliers, and then we put on our shelf, and we sell those activities on different channels. It can be B2C, B2B, or any kind of other channels where we can sell. So we source and we sell, and we used to have a market. We have different business model. The main one is a marketplace. So we take a commission based on every sales, or we even act as a tour operator with our own DMC in specific destinations. This is our business model. So we always look for suppliers around the world, and our account managers decide if they are suited for our distribution channels. In the slide that you are seeing now, I'm going to take you through some data, interesting data that we collect from our think tanks around the world, or any kind of study or analysis. We use different data sources that are kind of, let's say, just for us, so quite private, or even open data. And we use those data to see how can be the future of travel, and how we can get and drive our sales, make innovation around our products, and forecast for the future. In this slide, it's possible to see our customer segmentation in terms of age of users and gender. These are data coming from a study of TourScanner for tour and activities, and they were making a survey over to 1 million visitors. As you can see, in terms of the age, we are talking around millennials, so or even Gen Z. So we are talking about young generations that are used to book online. And of course, if we are looking to older tier of ages, you can see that the users are lower. So we are talking around Gen Z and millennials. And then regarding the gender, you can see that mainly females are booking online. And also another very relevant information that is not backed right now by a graph or data is that everything is going into mobile first. So we are seeing customer booking more and more online. Sorry, moving to the next slide, based on the data that we can get around different think tanks and studies, we develop our customer segmentation, and this is the customer segmentation of TUI Musement. What is a customer segmentation? Basically, based on market research and real data about existing customers, we are able to define customer personas that are an archetypal representation of our customers. So they are like type of customers. We have 4 different customer personas that are booking with us. Those are like categories of customers, let's say, to simplify. We have what we call it low-hanging fruit. So our current market that can be easily accessed. And we have, for example, culture vultures, or even social wonder, as we represent like Fernanda. And then for our future growth, we identify two different category of customer. The first one is happy family, and the second one is active adventurer. So why are so useful those customer personas? Because then we are able to align our brand, our value proposition, and our marketing activities to get as much as value out of those groups of customers. And we also used to source tour and activities, taking consideration what can really sell on our market. So it's also relevant for you as a supplier to understand who are the customers that we are referring to. And another interesting segmentation that is useful for you to understand the industry of tour and activities, but even for accommodation, is the channel segmentation. What does it mean? Channel is a way to a point of contact with our customer. As you can see in the tour and activities market, but as I said, also for accommodation, we have two different types of channels, basically offline and online, pretty simple to understand. Within the offline channels, we have point of sales. Basically, it's like your shop, a shop of a tour operator. Then it can be direct. So we are selling directly to final customer via B2C or B2B, or even offline with incoming tour operators. So you as a supplier or an accommodation provider might have a link with a tour operator around the world that is bringing people to Jamaica. And this is an offline channel. Talking about the online channels, we have here two main types. The first one is your website. So you can source, you can attract customers via your own website, or on the other hand, OTAs, online travel agency. And Musement is playing in some of these channels. The first one is, as I said, an OTA. And we are also operating as I said before, as an incoming tour operator, because we have our own DMCs around the world. So Musement is operating on OTAs as an OTA and incoming tour operator, even in Jamaica. If we want to deep dive into these two channels, how Musement is structured in terms of distribution. If we are talking about offline, we have our retail shops around the world. So in UK, for example, we have many retail shops. Then in destination, so for example, in Jamaica, we have our reps. Reps are representatives that are going around into our resort and they sell our tour and activities. And then, of course, the incoming tour operator is another way. So we have synergies with other tour operators to sell our activities. Regarding the online channel segmentation, we are able to, we have our own website, musement.com, gotui.com. So we have different websites and it's possible, you can even have a look and it's useful for you. Or another very good channel is our strategic partnership. So basically we make B2B partnership with like Trivago, Booking.com, and we give them our supply catalog, our tours, and they sell for us, and we make margin share. And the third one is our mobile app. So we have different apps for our customers to book the tours. So as you can see, we have different distribution channels because we want to maximize the distribution. And this is also a suggestion for you. So you should look to be omni-channel and being on different channels, going from your own website or going with OTAs or going with direct contact with tour operators. So the key takeaway is we are omni-channel. If you go on board with TUI Musement, we are trying to expose as much as possible your tour to many customers. So main tips from this first section of the presentation is know as much as possible about the industry, know very well what you are selling and the categorization and the distribution channel, and be on all our distribution channel to be present on all the distribution channel relevant to your destination. So these are the main tips. Now let's move into our values and what we are looking for. basically, we have three different pillars or values that are that we use to act every day, and they are our north star. So the first one is sustainability. So we always look for suppliers that take care around sustainability. We have a strong policy around animal welfare. So if you are providing sort of experiences that are involving animals, we will be very strict on analyzing those touring activities. And then, of course, very much focus on policies around health and safety. So we look for suppliers that have insurance, that they respect local laws, that are incorporated. So we look for many kind of policy to respect the policy, because we want to give the best to our final customers. Taking this into consideration, what we are looking right now after COVID. So what are the trends? What are we looking for? The first trend is private tours. As you can imagine, people want to run away from big groups because they are taking consideration COVID, any kind of COVID exposure. So they would like to be on private versions. And we see a trend of increasing bookings around this kind of version of our tours. So we even translated many of our tours from big bus tours into small group or even private. The second one, as I said, instead of running big groups, we would like to run small group tour. And for you, it's very important to understand the difference between private and small group tours. So a private, it's a group of people that are buying online, and there will be like just one family or one group of friends. Small group, we take FIT, so individual travelers, and we bring it together. So a couple, a family, another couple, and we create a group. So it's also very important for you, whenever you are going to sell your tours, to have this in mind, because customers want to know if it's a private, if it's a small group or a big group, because it's impacting their experience. During COVID, but now I see the trend that is going a little bit down is the virtual tours. So like taking virtual tours for people that were not able to travel was some sort of trend. But now, since we are recovering after COVID, people want really to travel. So we see a bounce back from the previous sales before COVID. So I will consider this virtual tour, but not main focus, because people want to travel. This is an example of Amazon that it was started to make some sort of prototype around private tours, and they were running the Explore beta. Explore is an experiment that we are doing around virtual tours. Then again, having a focus also on domestic market, because long haul is still very low, and you can get customer from your domestic market. So I mean, getting Jamaican travelers for your Jamaica tour operator accommodation tour, and not only relying on international travelers. So if you have a good mix of domestic and international, you will be much more resilient. And why? So the why is the values that we are looking for based on our core values. We look for local impact. So 60% of global travelers who like to have access to service and destination where we increase tourism, and we have a positive impact on local communities. This is data coming from Booking.com. From a top trend in 2020. So local impact, we see this trend more and more. Sustainability, as we were saying before, is not only our value, is something that also our customer is looking for. So customer would like to pay more if they know that they are booking an experience and a service with environmental sustainability. And here we look to the next chapter, a consumer trend developed by Arrival for us. And that's it. So if you have any kind of question, please let me know. Yeah, we have one question. How can a local supplier access to local reps? So basically, it's not possible to have access directly to local reps. Local reps are selling activities that are on our catalog. So you will need before to get into our catalog. I suggest you to use, I will write it here. This is our platform to source suppliers, and you can register, and an account manager will contact you. So business.musement.com, and the account manager will contact you as soon as possible to see if you are eligible to sell on our channels. So it's not possible to directly get into contact with local suppliers, but you need to before be listed here, and then local reps might sell your tour.
Thank you, Marco. There's a question here with regards to the tours. What are some of the sustainability measures that TUI Musement implement? So talking about the importance of sustainability.
Great question. We have in place a framework using a third-party company that is basically assessing the sustainability and environmental, everything related to sustainability of our tours. So basically, the suppliers are requested to fill forms, give information, and then we rely on a third-party company that are making the assessment to be like third party, and that there is no sort of like compromission from our side.
Thank you. I can't see any more questions at the moment.
Me either. Just to say though that if we've missed any of your questions, you can send them. Send us an email to jamaica@thetravelfoundation.org, and we'll also post that email address. We'll attempt to answer those questions on email if you think of anything after the session or we missed any that you posted.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I will leave the call and go back.
Thank you so much, Marco. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Marco. I think that fits really well actually with just the last couple of slides that I was going to present before we have one very short breakout session following that. So I'll just share my screen. So just thinking about sustainable products and experiences and how as businesses you might respond to that. So again, just a quick reminder of the kinds of things you could look at. So how could you reduce energy and water use? How could you purchase local products wherever possible? That might be food, it might be souvenirs, it might be equipment, all sorts of things. Reducing single-use plastic. I know that Jamaica is leading the way among destinations generally in terms of single-use plastic and the ban. I guess plastic bottles might be one example of that. Could you find other ways of offering water to guests, for example? Ensuring tours don't negatively impact natural habitats and wildlife, and then also informing customers, so getting them involved in how they can actually contribute in the way that they travel. And then experiences that give back. Again, how can you respond? So perhaps buying goods and services locally, employing local staff, training opportunities for local people, experiences for local communities, and perhaps collecting tourist donations towards a particular community project. And this quote from Impact Travel Alliance that we got when we were researching the toolkit really says it all, that Jamaica is set apart by the people and the culture and the warmth and hospitality of local Jamaicans. So talking a lot about immersive experiences and connecting with local people, making sure these experiences are community driven. I think that's something that Jamaica can do really well and does do really well. And so it's making sure that as tourism providers, that's what you're able to do.
We're just going to go through the key takeaways from today's session to wrap up. So just to go through the discussions that we had, the presentation that Rebecca made, and to just leave you with some key takeaways. Now, one of those takeaways is that travelers may be looking for fewer but longer trips. What we have seen is that research suggests that because of the pause in travel due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and really as a result of growing concerns over sustainability, many customers are actually looking to book fewer but longer trips. As a matter of fact, just recently I heard a report by the director of tourism, Jamaica, JTB. He recently said that Jamaica is now seeing an uptick in the length of stay for visitors to the island since the return of travel. So clearly right there and then you're seeing that this trend is playing out. And as travel resumes, one of the things they may also be looking to book is those once in a lifetime bucket list type trips and experiences. So something to know. The second takeaway we want to leave with you is that you need to respond to the search for authenticity. More and more people are really looking for authentic and meaningful connections as part of their travel experience. Of course, this means also that products that include genuine, Jamaican culture, like what Janet spoke about earlier, cuisine, communities, natural environments, these are all in demand. So anything that you can do to kind of weave these types of opportunities into your product or your experience that you offer will be beneficial to visitors. Another key takeaway is that communication with your customers is key. So if your product is already ticking off some of these emerging trends, then you want to make sure that you're communicating this very clearly to your potential customers. You can do this through, signage, through your website, through flyers, through your social media channels. Look for ways that you can also include keywords and phrases into your digital marketing content. So words like authentic, words like unique, local, sustainable, the real Jamaica, connecting to nature, open air, once in a lifetime. These types of buzzwords will really get the message across to your potential customers. Another takeaway is that virtual experiences are really becoming more and more popular. So you should think about whether you could provide virtual experiences to showcase your product to customers. And when you do that, you're actually reaching customers all over the world. This, of course, could also provide revenue in the short to medium term as the international tourism sector kind of recovers from the travel restrictions that were imposed as a result of COVID-19. But it's also a great way for you to promote your product to potential customers who may be more motivated to visit your business in person after sampling it virtually. That's also something that Janet spoke about earlier. Another takeaway is younger audiences are likely to lead the way. So millennials, like what Marco mentioned, and Generation Z, they're at the forefront of these trends. So you want to make sure that your advertising and that your promotion is targeting these groups. It will also ensure that you need to also ensure that you have an active online presence, especially on social media. The platforms such as like Instagram are becoming more and more being used more and more, by successful businesses to reach their potential customers in a more direct fashion. Mark also mentioned that most younger customers in particular are booking online. So you need to make sure that your websites are, optimized for things like mobile phones as well, because that's also very important as more and more people are using mobile platforms to do their business. And then in terms of your product, here are some key takeaways that you want to really take note of. Ensure that your product is meeting customer needs. So you need to check for ways that your product is adding value to for your customers and your tour operators that you're working with. Show how it stands out from your competitor. In what ways your business providing a kind of a unique and a fun and educational, a safe and interesting, memorable or interactive experience. Think about what you can do to to add in some of these elements if your business is not really already ticking off enough of them. This, of course, will ensure that your business is attractive to the needs of tour operators as well as those prospective customers, and it will put you ahead of the competition. You want to also ace the basics. So it's important that you provide an up-to-date description of your product. So in addition to providing key information like opening hours, you should provide information like contact details, your cancellation policies. This is important for your, people who are selling you, your third-party agents and sellers, as well as your customers, so they know exactly what to expect in advance. And it will also minimize the potential for anyone who's making a complaint to leave a bad review. And finally, you need to embed sustainability into your product. You want to think about what you are doing, what your business is doing to improve your sustainability credentials, and find ways to support, like local environment and community activities. I wanted to mention this because just this morning I saw a report on Vrbo, and Vrbo is the online booking agency which is affiliated with Expedia. Their report states that beyond 2021, their traveler value index research, and this is, based on research that is being conducted on their website for bookings that are being made, it shows that 59% of the travelers that are searching on their site are willing to spend more for a more sustainable trip. And 64% of millennials are more likely to consider sustainably managed properties and activities. So that's really something to take note of, and think about how you're going to position your own products so that your guests who are seeking sustainable stays and activities can benefit from them. And finally, I'd like to say, do not forget to let your customers know what it is that you're doing and how they can help. The next webinar we're going to have is next week, Thursday, 25th November at 10 a.m., same time, same place. And next week, we'll be discussing the guidelines for COVID-19 safe operations, as well as looking at international standards for health, safety, and security. So please do not miss it. Thank you all again for participating today and for joining us. It was really, I hope it was fruitful for you, and I hope you'll be able to put what you've learned today into practice. See you next Thursday.